Hello, I'm Samuel Hansen.
And I'm Peter Rowlett, and Samuel is visiting me in Nottingham. And while he's here, I'm taking him on a bit of a mathematical history tour of the city. Now, one of the things that happened in the city has to do with a company called Burroughs, who made adding machines. So, what do you know about adding machines?
Well, I know a bit. I know that the skid card machine was the first adding machine ever designed. You know, I mean, it was 20 years before the Pascaline, but the Pascaline actually went into production because the skid card machine was lost in a fire, and apparently he was too lazy to build another one. Now, I know that Pascal built around 50 and sold around 50, but it was not an actual successful enterprise for him. And I know that the first machine that did all four operations, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division, is the best named machine ever, the stepped reckoner, and that the arithmeter is the first successful commercial adding machine. And the comptometer turned out to be the first successful key-driven adding machine, which is very important because key-driven is what we use now. It's how keyboards and everything else came to be, because adding machines eventually evolved into computers. Now, that's something that the Burroughs company, which I know a little bit about, actually helped to do, because they were originally an adding machine company, American Arithmeter Corporation, I believe. I may have that a little bit mixed up. They're in St. Louis, Missouri, and then 6 years after Burroughs' death himself, they moved to Detroit. This was 1904, and they changed the name to the Burroughs Adding Machine Company. And then they started creating programmable. They created some of the first programmable ledger machines, and then they were actually one of the big six during the original computer revolution in the 60s.
Right. Now, we know from the British Society for the History of Mathematics, the BSHM, at bshm.org, have a list of places in the UK and stuff that's happened there in maths history. And one of the entries for Nottingham says Burroughs adding machines first began overseas production of adding machines in Nottingham in 1898, it says. And this interests me because it mentions a street. It mentions Kirkby Street and Bell Street, neither of which exist. So I emailed David Singmaster, who put this thing together, and he sent me a page from the book that had a plan of the site that the Burroughs factory was at. And you can see Bell Street and Kirkby Street, and alongside them Arkwright Street. So Arkwright Street is very interesting because there's an area of Nottingham called the Meadows, which has a big long street called Arkwright Walk. It's actually a pedestrian walkway now. And that area was redeveloped in the 1970s, 80s, around there somewhere. Now when I looked at an old map of the area, an old Ordnance Survey map, where Arkwright Street is, where Kirkby Street and Bell Street are, right opposite is a church. And Samuel and I'm going to take Samuel to go and see that church. I need to project that.
Yes, you do. You do definitely need to project in that direction. We're recording right now, by the way.
Yeah.
Just you know, so they get a little bit of the feel of our process.
Okay, and here we are in the Meadows in Nottingham, and behind us is that church from the map that we found through David Singmaster's clue. Now, the position of that church tells us that this is Arkwright Street, and actually nowadays it's called Arkwright Walk, and it's a pedestrian walkway. And if you remember Arkwright Street, the church was on the opposite side from the factory, which that means that the factory is over there. Okay, so we're around the corner from where we were. The road configuration has changed. They redeveloped this whole area in the 1970s, 80s, and they changed all the roads, but there is no longer a Kirkby Street or a Bell Street, but there is a Kirkby Gardens, which is not quite where Kirkby Street used to be, but almost. And from that we can work out where the factory used to be, and the factory used to be within this site that we're stood by now, which is now a school, Greenfield School.
Yeah, that we feel slightly awkward filming directly in front of us, but can't really see anything back there.
Yes, and it's too early to be open. Appropriate to the Victorian mystery that we're trying to solve, we have a nice fog, which is helpful.
So we're here at St. Mary Magdalene Church in Hucknall, the burial place of the Byron family. Specifically, we're saying next to Lord Byron's stone. Now, Lord Byron was the father of Ada Lovelace, better known as the world's first computer programmer. Now, Lord Byron never actually got to know his daughter, but was very influential in her life, since the problems that Lady Byron had with the Lord Byron caused her to push Ada towards the study of science and mathematics instead of towards the study of literature. Now this ended up pushing her towards meeting Mary Somerville, the queen of the 18th century sciences in England. And at one of her parties, Ada met Charles Babbage, the creator of the Difference engine and the engineer of the analytical engine. Now this was a very important project that was never entirely finished, but was sort of the culmination of the mechanical calculating machines, moving towards the idea of a programmable computer. Now, Ada's most important work was the translation of Italian memoir on the Difference and Analytical Engines, and it was in this memoir that she put forth a program that would be run on the analytical engine that would allow the calculation of Bernoulli numbers. And this is the first computer program that was ever actually written, and really was helped birth the ideas that would later culminate in the creation of the computer as well. There we go. That's good. A bit better.
Good.
Yeah, that's it. That was.
But you said every shot has to be a minute, and I bartered you down to more than 5 seconds, so that's good news. Sorry?
Does it end up on TV?
No.
No.